The night didn't creep in slowly. It slammed into me with the force of a freight train that I never saw coming. Madison had dragged me to her company's so-called celebration, an event that was supposed to be nothing more than a dull gathering of colleagues. But instead, it turned into the scene of the unraveling of everything I thought I knew. I arrived knowing nothing but certain that this night would pass quickly. I was wrong. From the moment we stepped through the doors, it was clear this wasn't just another party for her. Madison glided through the room like she owned it, her laughter ringing sharp and clear, catching the attention of everyone, but mostly one person, Brandon. He was there, unmistakable, his presence filling the space between them like an invisible thread. It was obvious they belonged in the same orbit. I tried to convince myself I was imagining it, that the easy way she let him lean in close, the way she didn't even bother to mask her smile when he whispered in her ear, meant nothing. But that feeling, that dark pit in my stomach, told me everything. He was the kind of man who walked in with his confidence turned all the way up, making sure everyone noticed the way he claimed what he wanted without apology. And tonight, he wanted Madison. The way Brandon's hand rested casually on her lower back, his fingers tracing lazy patterns that were supposed to be hidden, was the kind of boldness I hadn't expected to see. Madison didn't shy away. She welcomed it. That moment of stolen closeness, the way she closed her eyes, as if she were savoring it, hit me like a cold slap. I stood frozen in a shadowed corner, pretending to check my phone, while inside my world cracked. The confrontation was inevitable, though not the one I had imagined. Instead of bursting out with accusations or breaking into shouting, I waited until we got home, until the party's laughter was just a memory fading behind closed doors. I asked her. No, I demanded answers. But Madison's reaction wasn't what I expected from the woman I thought I knew. She scoffed, deflecting with half-truths and blatant lies, twisting reality as if she had practiced it in front of a mirror. She painted Brandon as just a harmless coworker, as if a man so brazen would be harmless. She called me paranoid, obsessed. I asked about the texts I found, the times she came home late, the sudden secretiveness. Her response was venom masked in sweetness. She told me I was suffocating her, that she deserved better. She was the last person I thought I'd recognize in that moment. Inside, a storm raged. I wasn't just hurt or angry, I was unmoored. The betrayal wasn't just the touch, the whispered words, or the secret meetings. It was the way she lied with such ease, the way she turned the tables until I was the one feeling guilty for questioning her. The woman I had loved, trusted, built a life with, was suddenly a stranger wielding knives hidden behind a smile. Sleep became a stranger too. Nights stretched long and empty, filled with memories I couldn't unsee and a future I didn't want to imagine. The feeling of being replaced, of watching someone else take the place I thought was mine, gnawed at me relentlessly. But amid the chaos, clarity crept in. This wasn't about her or Brandon anymore. It was about me. What I would allow, what I would fight for, or what I would walk away from. Decisions came hard and they came fast. Divorce wasn't just a word. It was a war zone I wasn't ready to enter blindly. Yet staying felt like surrender. I knew I had to rebuild from the ashes of this betrayal, but I wasn't sure if the pieces would ever fit the way they used to. The trust was shattered, maybe beyond repair, but I owed it to myself to find out. Looking back, what I learned was brutal but necessary. Sometimes the people closest to you show you the deepest wounds, not out of malice but because they've changed, or maybe never were who you thought they were. And the hardest part isn't just the betrayal itself. It's the slow realization that the person you loved could treat you with such disrespect, such contempt. If there's advice to give, it's this: pay attention to the small signs. Don't ignore the whispers beneath the laughter. And most importantly, never lose yourself trying to hold on to someone who's already left. If you want the next part, just say so. 2 nights after the party, something happened that burned the last bit of denial from my chest. Madison had left her laptop open on the kitchen counter. It was late, past midnight, and she was already asleep upstairs, or pretending to be. I couldn't sleep, of course. I'd been pacing, thinking, trying to untangle the web of confusion and anger that wrapped itself around me since that night. Something pulled me toward the laptop, and for once, I didn't talk myself out of it. I didn't hesitate. I opened her messages. It wasn't locked. And there it was, like it had been waiting for me. A string of emails with Brandon. Not one, not 10, dozens. They weren't subtle. They weren't careful. She hadn't even tried to delete them. Subject lines like, last Thursday, still thinking about it. Or, you left your hoodie in my car. Or, we really need a weekend away. Somewhere no one knows us. The most recent email was less than 2 hours old. Sent from her phone. You're bad for me. I can't stop smiling after today. I don't even feel guilty anymore. I just feel alive. I read it 3 times. Didn't breathe once. I don't even feel guilty anymore. You know what that sentence does to you? It breaks something in your spine. Something important. Something about belief. I didn't confront her that night. I shut the laptop gently, walked into the bathroom, and sat on the edge of the tub until the sun began to rise. I didn't cry. Not then. Couldn't. It was beyond that. My mind was like a blank sheet covered in fog, and in that fog was only one image. Her. Whispering into Brandon's ear, letting him touch her like I didn't exist. The next morning she acted normal. Too normal. Made coffee. Hummed while scrolling her phone. Kissed my cheek absent-mindedly like it was nothing. And I watched her like I was seeing a stranger wear my wife's skin. She looked right through me. Later that day, I left work early and drove to her office. I didn't go inside. I sat in the parking garage across the street and waited. I didn't know what I was waiting for. Maybe proof, maybe closure, maybe something to snap me back to life. Around 5:40, I saw her leave. Not alone. Brandon was with her. They weren't hiding. They walked toward his car. She said something, and he threw his head back laughing. Then, hand on her waist again, he opened the passenger door for her like a gentleman in a movie. She climbed in. He walked around, got in, drove off. She had told me she was working late that day. She always said that, and I always believed her. I followed. 10 miles out, they pulled into a small boutique hotel I'd never noticed before. He parked. They both got out. No rush, no hesitation. His hand reached for hers, and she took it. They walked inside like it was their second home. I didn't get out of the car. Didn't scream. Didn't cry. Just sat. Still. Like a man at his own funeral. There's a point where pain becomes clarity. You no longer feel confused. No longer wonder if you're overthinking. The truth isn't hidden anymore. It's waving at you from across the street. That night I drove home alone. She came back late. Said her meeting ran long and she was exhausted. I nodded. Said nothing. She kissed me again. This time on the lips. And I tasted something I didn't recognize. That was the moment I decided something had to change. But I wasn't going to shout. I wasn't going to fight. I was going to do something much worse. I was going to wait. 3 days passed. I didn't speak a word about what I knew. Not to her. Not to anyone. I woke up beside her. I drank coffee across from her. I watched her lie to me with her eyes, with her touch, with her every practiced gesture. She was performing a version of a wife she thought I'd still believe in, and I played along. Because something in me had shifted. Not quietly, not gradually, but like tectonic plates snapping. And when that kind of silence takes over, it isn't numbness. It's focus. I began watching everything. Every text she sent. Every phone call she took out of earshot. Every sudden grocery run. Every late meeting. I'm just going to grab a drink with Dana from accounting. Dana didn't exist. I checked. And while she was building her fantasy life with Brandon, full of excuses and half-closed doors, I was building something else. A record. I bought a burner phone. Installed an audio recorder app that activated with sound. I placed it under the passenger seat of her car. 2 days later, I retrieved it. The file was 4 hours long. But I only needed the first 20 minutes. Their voices filled my headphones. Her laugh, that sharp, slightly manic laugh she used when she was trying to sound innocent. His voice, smug, soaked in arrogance. I thought your husband would start catching on, Brandon said. He's clueless. she replied without hesitation. He's boring. Safe. I don't think he even looks at me anymore. I paused the recording, stared at the wall. The wall didn't blink, didn't break. Unlike me. I pressed play again. They talked about the hotel, about going further next time, about possibly getting serious. She said she'd been thinking about leaving me, said she wanted someone who made her feel wild again. Then came the part one didn't expect. I could wreck that guy in one conversation. Brandon laughed. He's weak. I see it all over him. Madison replied, don't. He might be quiet, but he's not stupid. If he finds out. She didn't finish the sentence. That was the first time I saw a crack in her performance. She knew, somewhere deep down, I wasn't as asleep as she hoped. And that gave me something, not hope, not satisfaction, but leverage. I copied the audio, backed it up 3 times, stored it online, printed transcripts, dates, times, names. I wasn't going to confront her empty-handed. That Friday we had dinner with friends. Couples thing. Madison played the loving wife, touching my arm, laughing at my dry jokes, stealing little moments like we were newlyweds. I mirrored it all. It made her comfortable. It made her drop her guard. That night, I told her I had a surprise planned for the next weekend. A getaway. Just us. To rekindle. She melted. Told me how sweet I was. Told me she missed this. She had no idea what I had planned. I booked the cabin upstate. One night. Isolated. Quiet. Not for revenge. Not for drama. For answers. But before we even got that far, something else exploded. Because Brandon couldn't help himself. He showed up at our house. Middle of the day. Middle of the week. I was working from home. A fact Madison clearly forgot. And she thought I had a meeting downtown. She came home early, alone she thought. But I was upstairs, lights off, watching the security feed. He pulled into the driveway, checked his hair in the mirror, walked up like he belonged. She answered with a smile so soft it sickened me. And he kissed her. Right there. On our porch. It wasn't hidden. It wasn't subtle. It was war. She let him in. They didn't see me standing at the top of the stairs when they passed. I watched them walk into my kitchen. And I waited 10 minutes. Just 10. Then I walked down like nothing was wrong. And the look on her face when she saw me, I'll remember it for the rest of my life. I stepped into the kitchen like I was just there to refill my coffee. Like the man sitting at my table wasn't the same one who had his hands on my wife in my driveway less than 15 minutes ago. Brandon looked up first, his face a slow-motion reel of realization. He tried to smile, that same cocky smirk he wore at the party. But it fell apart before it reached his eyes. Madison turned second. Her mouth opened but no sound came out. She looked cornered, not guilty, cornered. I walked past them, opened the cupboard, pulled down a mug. I could feel the tension in the air, thick and sour, like smoke before a fire. I stirred the coffee slowly. No one moved. No one spoke. The silence became a living thing, clawing at every breath. Then I said it. So, this is Brandon. He cleared his throat. Yeah. I just came by to drop something off. I finished for him, turning to face them. Or maybe pick something up. Madison's arms were crossed tightly over her chest. Jake, don't what? I asked, my voice steady. Don't talk? Don't stand in my own house and ask why the man who's been sleeping with my wife is here in my kitchen like we're about to play cards. Her jaw clenched. You're being dramatic. There it was. Dramatic. A word that slices deeper than most. I laughed quietly. Tell me, Brandon, did you plan this? Or was it just poor timing? Because let me tell you, if I'd walked in 5 minutes later, would I have found you two in my bed or just halfway there? Brandon stood then, defensive, arms loose at his sides. Look, man. Don't look, man me. I pointed at him with the mug still in my hand. You came to my house. My house. That makes you either bold or stupid. I haven't decided which yet. Madison stepped between us, but not protectively. Almost like she was trying to control the scene. I didn't want you to find out like this. That line was so perfectly rehearsed, so textbook false. I actually felt something inside me smile. You didn't want me to find out? Madison, you've been begging me to find out for weeks. You've been leaving breadcrumbs like you were hoping I'd follow the trail just to end this for you. She flinched and I saw it. For the first time, she had no response. So I kept going. I've heard your conversations. I've read your messages. I've watched you lie straight to my face and then walk out the door to him. And I let you. Because I wanted to see just how far you'd take it. Brandon looked uncomfortable now, shifting his weight. I turned to him. Tell me, did she ever mention my name? While you two were sneaking around. Did she ever talk about the man she promised her life to? He didn't answer. Coward. I leaned against the counter and stared at them. My wife and the stranger she let into my life. My home. My trust. Then I dropped it. Next weekend, I was going to take her away. Just the two of us. I had a whole plan. Not to fix things, that ship sailed the night she lied to me the first time. But to end it. Clean. Honest. To lay it all out and walk away like adults. They looked at each other, quick, sharp, like they were trying to recalibrate. But now, I shook my head. Now you brought it here. So congratulations. You've escalated this. Madison's voice finally returned, weak and sour. What are you going to do? I looked her dead in the eyes. I'm going to take everything you thought I'd never touch. Then I walked upstairs, locked the door, and started packing. Not clothes, not for a trip. I packed documents, papers, evidence, the kind that matters in court. Because this wasn't just betrayal anymore. This was war. The silence in the house after that confrontation was unlike anything I'd ever heard. It was too loud, too thick, like the air itself had turned into a wall between us. Madison didn't follow me upstairs. She didn't knock, didn't shout through the door or try to explain. That told me more than any of her excuses ever could. She was quiet because she was guilty. She was quiet because she was calculating. I sat on the floor of our walk-in closet with a legal pad, a laptop, and a manila folder stuffed with everything I had gathered, screenshots of her messages, printed emails, a transcript of the recording from her car, even time-stamped photos of her walking into that hotel with Brandon. I wasn't packing clothes. I was preparing a case. My name was on the deed to this house. My name was on the bank accounts. I knew our marriage inside out. She only knew how to wear the ring, not how to protect what came with it. By morning, she was gone. Left before sunrise. I heard the door. I didn't get up. Didn't need to. I already knew where she was going. And I knew exactly what she'd say when she got there. She'd tell Brandon I was losing it. That I was obsessed. That I had snapped. She would paint herself as the victim. The lonely, neglected wife trapped in a loveless marriage, starved for affection, forced to seek it elsewhere. I could write the script for her. It was that predictable. But I wasn't playing her game anymore. At 9 a.m. sharp, I called my lawyer. I didn't ask for advice. I informed him. I told him I wanted to begin filing, that I had full documentation, clear infidelity, and I was prepared to take this to court. I wanted to ensure she left with exactly what she brought into the marriage, which was, frankly, next to nothing. He asked if there were kids involved. No, thank God. Then he asked the question I had been bracing for. Do you want this to get ugly? I paused. Only if she pushes. And she did. By the time Madison returned later that night, the tone had changed. She came in fast. Angry, cornered, not apologetic, but defensive. She slammed her keys on the table and said, "So you're going to ruin my life now? Really?" I stared at her from the living room chair, calm, still. "No," I said. "You already did that. I'm just not going to let you walk away with a smile." She paced, arms flailing, theatrical. "You were never there for me, Jake. You just work, and sit around in that dead stare like I'm a roommate instead of your wife. What did you think was going to happen?" I let her rant. Every sentence gave me more resolve. "You think you're this noble victim? That you're entitled to control how this ends? You want to play the part of the neglected woman? Fine. But I'm not letting you rewrite history while I'm still standing in it." She scoffed. "You wouldn't dare take this public." I leaned forward. "I won't have to. You'll ruin your own name trying to cover your tracks. And then, I dropped the line that stopped her cold. I know about the work computer, the company emails, the way you used office hours, office property, even the company card. Her face froze. That wasn't just a marriage violation. That was a career killer. You really think Brandon's going to protect you when he realizes his job's on the line too? You think your boss is going to take your side when I send them everything? Now she was breathing differently, cornered again. Only this time I wasn't the one with my back against the wall. I stood. I'm giving you two choices, I said. You walk away quietly. You sign the divorce papers. No claims. No fights. Or I go nuclear. And I don't stop until you're standing in court with nothing but regrets and a bad reputation. She didn't speak. She just stood there, staring. And in that moment, I saw her clearly. Not as my wife. Not as the woman I married. But as a manipulator calculating how to survive the collapse she caused. She left the room. No answer. But I had mine. The next few days were quiet, artificially quiet, the kind of silence that doesn't mean peace, but preparation. Madison barely spoke to me. She moved through the house like a shadow, but not because she felt shame. No, she was recalibrating. You could feel it in the way she avoided eye contact, the way her phone never left her hand, the way she started locking doors that used to remain open. She wasn't mourning the marriage. She was plotting her exit. And I let her, because by then, I had already mailed the first envelope. Inside it, copies of her company emails, screenshots of the hotel confirmations made from her work account, and a transcript of a conversation she had on the clock. I sent it directly to her firm's internal HR director. Certified mail, signature required. No return address, just a trail of proof tied neatly with a bow. I knew what that would do. She thought I was bluffing. I wasn't. The call came the next morning. I was in the kitchen when she answered. I couldn't hear every word, but her face told me enough. Pale, jaw locked, nostrils flared. She kept her voice low, but when you know someone for that long, you can read a whole conversation from body language alone. They were investigating her. And not just her. Brandon too. She hung up, didn't look at me, walked to the hallway, slammed the bathroom door. I didn't follow. Instead, I poured myself coffee and texted my lawyer. Phase 2 begins. I filed the papers that afternoon. It was clean, efficient. I cited infidelity, included documentation, and requested full ownership of the house and both vehicles. I waived alimony, not out of mercy, but because I didn't want a single connection to her future. I wanted her cut out like a tumor. When she got home that evening, she already knew. The envelope was sitting on the kitchen counter. She didn't open it right away. She stared at it like it might explode. Wow, she said finally. You're really doing this. I didn't answer. She stepped forward slowly, picked it up, and flipped through the pages. I'm not signing this. I leaned back against the wall. You will. What makes you so sure? Because the alternative is worse. I saw her calculating again, those sharp eyes darting across the room, as if escape could be found in the corners. You think this makes you strong? She snapped. Dragging me through court? Humiliating me at work? Like that's going to undo everything? I walked past her, grabbed the second envelope I'd hidden in the drawer, and dropped it beside her purse. What's this? She asked, voice-edged. A copy of the footage from the hotel. Security cam pulled from the lobby. Dated. Time-stamped. With both your names on the reservation. I made friends with the night manager. She went pale again. You show that to anyone and you'll what? I said, stepping closer. Threaten me? Please do. Give me one more reason to expose everything. I'm not scared of you, Madison. Not anymore. That was the moment she realized the power had shifted. I wasn't asking for peace. I wasn't negotiating. I was giving her a door, and she could either walk through it quietly or crash through it screaming. She said nothing, just turned, picked up the papers, and walked out. For the first time in weeks, I slept. She disappeared for 4 days. No texts, no calls, not a single item removed from the house. Her clothes still hung in the closet. Her perfume still sat on the bathroom counter, untouched. But her presence? Erased, like she had vacuumed herself out of existence, hoping I'd panic and chase her. I didn't. I used that time to finalize everything. I met with my attorney twice. We reviewed my case line by line. Infidelity, financial misconduct, reputational damage. We drafted a clean asset division proposal that favored me without being unreasonable. I wasn't trying to ruin her. I was making sure she never had the option to ruin me again. The third night, I got a call from a blocked number. I almost didn't answer. Jake. Her voice cracked through the speaker, low and bitter. You sent them everything. I didn't speak. They suspended me. Brandon, too. They're doing a full audit of our messages. I have to attend a review board next week. Still, I said nothing. You think this is going to fix things? You think this is justice? I finally spoke. I think this is consequence. She fell silent. I could hear traffic behind her. She was somewhere downtown, probably in her car, probably not alone. I didn't care. You've made your point, she said. No, I said calm. I haven't even started. Click. She hung up. The next morning, I received a counterproposal from her attorney. It was a joke. She wanted to split the house, one car, and demanded spousal maintenance due to lifestyle adjustment and emotional distress. I laughed. I sent it back with a single note. Declined. Attached are exhibits A through K. I included photo evidence, audio transcripts, financial statements showing unauthorized personal charges on the joint card, and records from my private investigator. Yes, I hired one after the party. Everything she thought she'd hidden was now organized, paginated, and highlighted. That was the last time her lawyer tried to negotiate. By the end of the week, she came back, not out of courage, but because she had nowhere left to run. She entered the house like a tenant trying to retrieve belongings, not a wife returning home. No attempt at small talk. No eye contact. Just one suitcase. Quiet footsteps. She moved through the house like a ghost. I watched from the kitchen as she pulled clothes from drawers and shelves. She didn't ask for help. She didn't ask for forgiveness. But she did stop at the door. Not to apologize. Not to explain. But to wound. You think you won, she said, not looking at me. No, I replied. I know I did. Her grip on the suitcase tightened. You were never enough, she muttered. I almost laughed. Not out of amusement, but because I realized how desperate that line was. One last attempt to scratch the surface. One last swing in a fight she'd already lost. I stepped forward, slow, deliberate. Then why did it take both of you to try and replace me? She didn't answer. She just walked out. And this time I didn't watch her go. When she left that day, suitcase rolling behind her, door shutting without a slam, it felt less like the end of a marriage and more like the final scene of a play that had long lost its script. I didn't feel relief. Not anger. Not even sadness. What I felt was something quieter. A strange, clear silence that filled the house like a new tenant. She didn't come back. Not that week. Not the next. And still, I waited not for her but for what always follows when people like Madison lose control. The attempt to reclaim it. It came through her attorney first. A series of delays. Concerns. Subtle threats. She wasn't challenging the divorce anymore. She was trying to reshape it. Rewriting timelines. Suddenly remembering emotional abuse. Hinting that maybe she'd file her own claims if I didn't settle generously. My attorney shut that down fast. Every accusation she tried to manufacture, I met with a document. Every memory she recounted, I countered with a receipt, a screenshot, a witness. I wasn't reacting emotionally anymore. I was dismantling a case. She wanted me off balance. But I had nothing left to lose. Then came the twist. Brandon was fired. Full termination. No severance. No reference. I didn't find out through gossip or a corporate leak. I found out because Brandon showed up at my door. That's right. He came to me, middle of the afternoon, unshaven, red-eyed, sweat clinging to a wrinkled dress shirt like he hadn't slept in days. I opened the door and stared. He looked ruined, and I let him speak. I didn't know she was going to take it that far, he said. She said you were separated. She said a lot of things. I didn't respond. She lied to me too, man. That's when I did respond. She lied to me for years. You got 6 months. Forgive me if I don't play the violin. He rubbed his hands over his face, desperate. I lost my job. I might lose my license over this. I didn't think it would end like this. And that was the moment I understood something important. They never thought it would end. They thought they could live in the middle, dance between choices, get the thrill without the collapse. She wanted excitement and security. He wanted danger with no consequence. They both underestimated the one thing they had in common, me. I didn't slam the door in his face. I didn't yell. I just leaned in and said, "You walked into my home, touched my wife and laughed about it. You don't get to be the victim now." He left, and that was the last I ever saw of him. The court date drew closer. Madison stopped fighting the paperwork. I think reality finally reached her. The job was in limbo, her reputation stained, friends distancing, family asking questions, and all she had left was a shell of the life she tried to rebuild out of betrayal. But still, she sent me one final message. Just one. A short email. "I hope one day you see how cold you became. I never wanted this. I just wanted to feel wanted." I stared at it for a long time. Then I replied, "I hope one day you learn the difference between being wanted and being loyal. I gave you both. You gave me neither." The morning of the court hearing arrived without chaos, without drama. Just a clear sky, a pressed shirt, and a deep breath that didn't catch in my throat for the first time in months. I arrived early, sat in my car outside the courthouse, watching people drift in and out like extras in someone else's story. I felt distant from it all, like I was already beyond this, like the legal process was just the final mechanical step in a machine that had already done its damage. When I walked into the courtroom, Madison was already seated. She looked smaller than I remembered, hair tied too tight, face blank, not sad, not angry, just resigned. She wouldn't look at me, not once. Our lawyers handled everything. The judge moved through the documents like he was reading a grocery list. No emotion, just signatures, acknowledgments, records. When he confirmed the infidelity claim, Madison didn't flinch. When he listed the property and asset division, house to me, both vehicles retained, accounts frozen until final disbursement, she only blinked. The one moment she spoke was when the judge asked if she understood the consequences of contesting the settlement agreement. "I do," she said, voice brittle. And just like that, the chapter closed. We walked out into the bright sunlight through separate doors. But it wasn't over. Not really. The aftermath always lingers. In the following weeks, I started to notice how deep her betrayal had hollowed things out. I'd stand in a room and suddenly feel that sharp, ghostly absence. Like I was expecting her voice, her footsteps, her perfume in the air. I threw out her things slowly, methodically, not as a purge but as an audit. A full accounting of what needed to be gone. Friends reached out, some with awkward sympathy, others with whispered "I knew it's." But the most surprising part? I didn't want to talk about her anymore. She had already taken too much space, too much weight. I refused to give her more. Instead, I turned inward. I picked up the guitar I hadn't touched in 3 years. I reconnected with my brother in Denver. I started running again, not away from something, but toward a version of myself I forgot existed. Then one night I found something she'd left behind. A notebook, tucked in the back of her old dresser drawer. Inside were scattered thoughts, half-written letters, some to me, some not. One page stood out. "There's a moment you cross a line and you know you're on the other side forever." I crossed it. I knew I did. And I kept going anyway. I closed the notebook, put it in a box, taped it shut. Not out of anger, out of completion. That was her story now. A life she chose, a line she crossed. Mine was still ahead of me. Months passed. Life didn't return to normal. It reinvented itself. At first, everything felt like walking through echoes. Rooms too quiet, closets too spacious, mornings without movement. Even the sound of coffee brewing felt foreign. But slowly, silence became comfort. Solitude stopped being a punishment and turned into clarity. I learned a lot, not just about Madison, but about myself. How much I had compromised. How often I ignored the gut feelings. How willing I was to absorb small lies just to protect a bigger illusion. It wasn't just that she betrayed me, it was that I betrayed myself by pretending she never would. That was the real lesson. Letting someone desecrate your trust because you're too in love with the idea of them to admit who they truly are. I moved out of the house 3 months after the divorce finalized. Sold it shortly after. I didn't want to reclaim it. Some things aren't meant to be rebuilt. They're meant to be left behind as warnings. I bought a condo across town. High up, clean, sparse. A space with no ghosts in the walls. Madison reached out only once after the dust settled. A text. "Do you ever think about how we used to be?" I didn't reply, because that version of us? It died the day she let someone else into our story and handed him a pen. I heard through a mutual acquaintance that she left the firm before they completed the internal audit. Brandon's career never recovered. Rumor has it they're not together anymore. Or maybe they are. Honestly, it doesn't matter. Let them sit in the ruins they made. As for me, I no longer carry the weight of trying to understand why she did it. People don't betray you because of who you are. They betray you because of who they are. It was never my fault. And that's not a justification. That's liberation. There's a calmness in acceptance. A final, quiet peace in knowing you stared into the fire, didn't run, didn't beg, didn't shatter. You stood. And when the flames burned down, you were still there, whole, scarred, but unbroken. To anyone who reads this and sees their own reflection, here's what I'll say. If something feels wrong, it probably is. If they lie once, they'll lie again. And if you have to question whether someone respects you, they don't. Trust is simple. When it's not, it's already gone. Let it burn. Then walk away. Not broken, but free.